God,
There.
Jason.
Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for the City of Hendersonville. It's January 25th, 2022. It's just a couple seconds after 7 p.m. So we're going to begin as we typically do, and that's with a prayer and a pledge. So if you could go ahead and join me and stand, and I'll lead us in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to serve you. Thank you for the opportunity to come together and serve the people of Hendersonville as well. And thank you for the many gifts, talents, and abilities you've given us to help us serve you. Help us to use those to do your work here, but not just here, but as we go far away. And thank you for the wonderful people we have that we serve here. And also thank you for the people who protect us here and the people who protect us far away. We want you we want to offer requests for special blessings on Steve Luther, Joe Skidmore, Dylan Taylor, and many of our friends and family who are still suffering from illness, and many of our friends and family that are still grieving. And as always, in your name, in your Son's name, we pray. Amen. So please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Annette, you want to call the roll just so we know who's here?
Yes.
Okay.
Brown. Here. Collins.
Here.
Cunningham.
Here.
Dixon.
Here.
Edwards. Hayes.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Petrelli.
Here.
Robertson. Skidmore. Waters. Clary.
Here. Appreciate that. Alderman Edwards has texted me and said that he will be here in just a minute. I'm going to entertain a motion to accept our agenda. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Hayes. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of approving the agenda as it was provided to you in your packet, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have presentations. I want to introduce Ken Youngstead, and obviously we know Robert Manning to come up and give us a wonderful, wonderful report. We'll have time for questions since this is a presentation. But go ahead, Ken. Go ahead, Robert. Appreciate you all being here.
Great. Well, thank you all for allowing me some time at your meeting tonight. My name's Ken Youngstead. I'm with Kraft CPAs. Wanted to give you all an update. Actually met with the Finance Committee earlier today and went through our audit report that was issued in late December. And went over some other communications with them, went through that in a little more detail than I plan to tonight, but still want to give you an update and be able to take your questions as you have any on the audited financial statements. So first, I'll give you just a few general items about the conduct of the audit itself. We didn't have any new accounting policies that we adopted this year. There was nothing new or unusual or significant where we have items that didn't have a proper authoritative guidance. I think everything was pretty straightforward on that front, so nothing to report to you there. All financial statements include some estimates. The most notable estimates that you all have in your financial statements are the depreciation of long-lived assets on your government-wide statements. Of course, depreciation is an estimate. The pension liability and your liability for post-employment benefits, retiree health insurance. So those are the three most notable estimates in the financial statements. Otherwise didn't have any other significant issues or difficulties throughout the conduct of the audit. Really appreciate Robert and his team. You've got a great team here at the city. We were able to move through things and things were in good order. So the audit was clean on that front. So the audited financial statements themselves, I'll just give you a couple of highlights and tell you what's here. Of course, the full report is over 100 pages, and so I'm not going to go in any great detail. But if there is something specific that you want to hear more about, please let me know about that. So flipping over to, to pages 1, 2, and 3 of the financials, if you happen to have those in front of you, that is our audit opinion. And we talk about our responsibilities as auditors and the city's responsibilities. But the important part is at the top of page 2, where we have the opinion, where we say the financial statements present fairly in all material respects for the government's activities. So that's a clean, unmodified opinion. We also talk about some of the supplementary information, the schedule of federal and state awards that you have there, and have clean opinions on that information as well. There is a new section in the financial statements this year that Robert has put together. It's a statistical section that really completes a full presentation of an annual comprehensive financial report. And so on the financials, pages 82 through pages 102, you'll find a lot of interesting information, historical information about cities' activities, financial activities, and just other general information. And so you may want to take a look at that when you have time to reflect on some of those prior numbers. I think looking at the current year activity, there's a management and discussion and analysis that is on pages 4, I think, through about pages 13 or 14. And this is really the best way to take a brief look and see year-over-year comparisons of how 2021's fiscal year compared to 2020. There's comparative information there. As you look at the core financial statements, you might see more, just one-year presentations, which is why I think the MD&A is a great place to look to get a quick summary of things. One thing we talked about in the Finance Committee meeting, which I think is great news, is the increase in your unassigned fund balance in your general fund. So that went from, $4 million to a little over $11 million this year. And so I know that's something that you all have really talked a lot about in years past, wanting to grow that, and that's really good news on that front. Looking at page 7 of the MD&A, you'll see a summary of your governmental activities, business type activities, and total on a government-wide basis, your statement of net position. Business type activities, that's the golf course. And so total net position increase was about $9.8 million for 2021, so good news on that front. You'll see on page 8 a summary of the revenues and expenses for the governmental activities, and you'll see that that things looked good for 2021 on that front as well. Charges for services were up a little over $1 million. Sales taxes were up, for the year, and so that's what's contributed to positive results. Looking at there's also information about you had some new debt issued during the course of the year, and you've got some capital projects ongoing. I think the MD&A will talk in a little bit of detail about those projects, and so feel free to take a look at that. This year we did perform a uniform guidance, a single audit as well. I think page 81, you'll see the schedule of federal awards for that, and we had a couple of programs that were major programs this year, and did not have any findings that we identified during the course of the single audit as well. So clean opinion on that standpoint as well. So good news on that front, and congratulations, Robert, on that in the city. So no findings to report on those. The government auditing standards reports that are in the back of the financial statement presentation represent clean opinions as well. So glad to take any questions that you all have about the financial statements. If there's something you want to hear more about.
Ken, not a question, but I want to let everybody know that we very often praise our staff, including our finance staff. What Ken is telling us is that we're right, is we have a very strong finance staff.
Agree.
Here's your chance. Ken, thank you. Robert, thank you. Appreciate
you.
Being here. I'm going to entertain a motion to approve our minutes from, I'm sorry?
Sure.
Go ahead, Alderman.
Since no one else is going to ask, I'll just ask a real quick question. Appreciate you bringing this out tonight. Based on our comprehensive study from last year on our financial reports, is there anything that we missed the boat on, or we need to look at that I'm not saying whether it's bad or good, but it's something that we might want to maybe make an issue, not an issue, but just make sure that we do it right next year.
Yeah, talking about the form and format of the report itself.
Right.
Yeah, so I think the addition of the statistical section really completes a full presentation of that annual comprehensive financial report, and I think there may be some goals. Robert could talk more about that probably than I, but I think.
Well, I can talk to him privately. I just wanted to make sure, because I know in our past there have been things that have been done by, us or staff or just the city as a whole that we needed to pay more attention to. And I wanted to make sure that we've corrected those, because I know that we have, but I wanted to make sure that that we're on the right straight and narrow. And I want to, we as a board want to keep that. Robert's done an excellent, Mr. Manning has done an excellent job since he's been here. And I'm just grateful for his efforts in this. And this kind of proves to us, about him and his leadership. So that says a lot. So that's why I was asking to make sure, if there's something that we need to be prepared for, that we need to change.
Yeah, I most certainly think you're on the right track on that front.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate the question.
That was it. And thank you again for your help on this.
Thank you, Ken.
Great.
Thank you, Alderman Skidmore. I'm going to entertain a motion to approve our minutes from our meeting on January 11th, 2022. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Cunningham. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes from January 11th, 2022, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have citizen comments. Speakers must identify themselves by name and address. I will probably do that for you. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per individual, which time is not transferable to other speakers. All comments are to be directed to the presiding officer, that's me, not to the alderman, city staff, or other members of the public. Comments must address issues, not individuals or personalities. Personal attacks shall not be tolerated. Comments may support or oppose particular issues or measures, but the motives of those with differing views shall not be questioned or attacked. Malicious comments will not be allowed. Speeches for or against particular candidates running for public office shall not be allowed. David Mooney on Cherry Grove Drive.
Well, good evening. I'm Dave Mooney from 971 Cherry Grove Drive here in Hendersonville. I'm here tonight to recommend that you select Julie White to be the new alderman for Ward 2. I have known and worked closely with Julie for over 10 years. I'm currently a board member at the Hendersonville Senior Center, and I was a board member when the position of executive director became vacant several years ago. We interviewed a significant number of candidates for that position and selected Julie White to be the new executive director. After careful review and interviewing several candidates, Julie was far and above the best qualified candidate for the position. Since her selection as the executive director, the senior center has thrived. New programs have been introduced, and fundraising has increased. The majority of funding for the center comes from the Greater Nashville Regional Council. They have stringent requirements for accounting on the use of their funds, and the center has passed every inspection with flying colors. Julie led the center through the past 2 years when COVID limited or stopped participation and reduced the funding sources for the center. She developed new funding raising events. During this time, she also oversaw the complete renovation of the center, ensuring that all work was completed to the highest standards. The city of Hendersonville has a senior center that the city and its residents can be proud of. Julie has been a longtime resident of Hendersonville community and has contributed to the community in many ways. She is a member of the Hendersonville Morning Rotary. She recently was instrumental in coordinating the fundraising efforts necessary for the First Responders Memorial, which was recently installed in Memorial Park. She is active in many other Rotary efforts, and Julie was deeply involved in the recent success of the Rotary Pancakes for Kids that raised significant funds for our Rotary charities. She has assisted the VFW Post 9850 Fund in conducting fundraising efforts for programs that support both the veterans of Hendersonville and the local citizens. Julie has an in-depth knowledge of the city of Hendersonville, its residents, and its civic fabric. She will bring an open mind to the task before BOMA and assess each task on its merits, benefits for the citizens of Ward 2 and the city as a whole. I strongly and vigorously urge you to select Julie White as the next alderman for Ward 2. Thank you.
Dave, thank you. Chris Radigan, Sanders Ferry Road.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and ladies and gentlemen on the board. I spoke last time as well. We all know Pat was a great guy and he worked hard in representing us on the peninsula. There's no doubt about that. He was always great. He listened as well as explained solutions to any of our questions, and he helped take care of any issues that any of his constituents had. And he'd also stop if you were mowing the grass or even a cash saver to see how you're doing, to chat about some music or, barbecue. We talked about barbecue last time. He won't be forgotten, but tonight we need to find a successor for his seat. We need an alderman who has the support of the residents of the Walton Ferry Peninsula and will represent our interests on that Walton Ferry Peninsula. Lori Phillips, in her almost 20 years as a resident on the peninsula, owns a business. She's involved with the school, and she's also active with her church. She's very passionate about what is important, so I think she'd do the best at being an alderman as well. She's been on our side against overgrowth, apartments, rezoning, and doesn't support the people that do. She looks out for everyone and thinks the same way the majority of us do on the peninsula. Lori wants to preserve what we have, as do we, and we support her to represent us as our alderman. Thank you.
Chris, thank you. Cheryl Sessler, River Chase.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Sessler. I'm a longtime resident of Hendersonville, and my business, which was started in 1991, is located in Ward 2. I'm here tonight to respectfully request that you appoint Julie White to fill the vacant alderman seat in Ward 2. I'm making this request because I believe that we are in very exciting times for Hendersonville, which will require leaders like yourselves who have proven the ability to think critically, make wise decisions for the people of our community, and professionally represent Hendersonville. Julie White has lived here most of her life, went to school here, raised her children here, and has years of experience serving our community through service clubs, church, and work with nonprofits. I have known Ms. White for years, but most recently I'm serving on the board of the Senior Center, where she is the CEO, and I have been able to observe her abilities, integrity, and love of Hendersonville. Although your appointment tonight is for only a few months, it can have far-reaching effects for our community. For this reason, I'm requesting that you appoint the best candidate to represent her constituents, Julie White. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. That's the end of citizens' comments. Next, we have the election of a Ward 2 alderman. I took a look at what we have done with the appointment of Paul Frisbee and with Andy Bolt, and what we did is we allowed the applicants to speak for 3 minutes, and then they spoke alphabetically. So, Lori Phillips. You're good.
Hello. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just getting over a sore throat, and I'm not used to this as much as you guys are. So, my name is Lori Phillips, and I live at 126 Dana Drive, Hendersonville, Tennessee, on the Walton Ferry Peninsula. I made a few notes to keep me on point. I'm thankful for this opportunity to even speak in front of you and to be here. I love our city. And I look at this as an opportunity, if it's given to me, or if it's granted to me, an opportunity to not so much get into politics, but to get into service. I have a heart for service, and so that is what I would like to do for the city. And I know that the reason that we need to appoint somebody is because we did lose Pat Campbell. And that broke my heart when I heard that. It also shocked me. And being not just in his ward, but in his neighborhood, I had gotten many opportunities to speak with him. He was always very gracious. We didn't always agree on everything, but we always were able to have a gracious conversation. And on our neighborhood social media platforms, Pat was always the first one with advice, answers if anybody had a question, and resources. So I would hope to do that for my constituents as well. I do raise 3 children here. I'm very involved in their schools. Because we are parents here, we're very passionate about the town. We utilize the parks. We utilize, we take advantage of all the amenities of our great town. And I moved here in '03, so I'm a little bit of a newer resident. It sounds crazy when they say I've been here for almost 20 years. I'm like, wow, has it been that long? And I guess it has. And I love it. It's a great place to raise a family. And being a parent, I am passionate about a lot of things, definitely the schools. Public safety is important to me, not just as a parent, but as a resident myself. I think it's critical that we support that. Responsible growth, as they were saying. This is not the same city I moved to in '03. In '03, I think I could count on my hands how many choices we had of places to eat. So we are definitely growing, and in a lot of ways, I think that's fantastic. We just have to do it responsibly. I think, all the choices we have now for places to eat and places to be entertained is fantastic compared to when I moved here in '03. So definitely excited to maybe be able to be a part of that. And I could promise that I would just bring my honesty, my integrity, an open mind for sure. I would prayerfully and thoughtfully consider every decision that I was asked to make, if you select me. Thank you very much.
Lori, thank you.
Thank you.
Julie White.
I need to apologize for the bullfrog voice right now. So everybody's had it, so just bear with me. I'd like to first thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you, to come before you and present myself and my qualifications for what I think would be a great opportunity, not just for me, but for the city itself, for someone that has the background that I have. First, I want to tell you, I'm a Rotarian, and I have been for 15 years. And many of you are Rotarians, so I don't have to tell you this, but service above self is the motto of every Rotarian in the world, and that's the motto by which I live. Once acquainted with me, you will learn that, and you will also realize that I have strong interpersonal skills and adept critical thinking skills that give me the ability to represent my ward, to support the constituents of our ward, and to be honest with myself and to vote my conscience. I believe these to be the qualities of a great community servant. One might assume that I am a public servant by virtue of the job that I have. As you all know, I work for the senior citizens of Hendersonville. But I had a father who was retired military, a grandmother who was a retired public school teacher in West Tennessee, and they moved here, and a grandfather for whom I am so proud. He was the bodyguard to 4 sitting governors in the state of Tennessee as a trooper with THP. So you can say that I come from a long line of public servants. I'm a long-term resident of Hendersonville, as I've said. I'm an active member of the Indian Lake Peninsula Church, and I serve with the Rotary Club of Hendersonville in the Morning Club. I also serve as an ambassador for the Hendersonville Chamber of Commerce, and actively participate within the Parks Department as a softball umpire. I've done that for many years. I took a break, but they called me back, and I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and it's just another way to give. I'm also a member of the alumni of Leadership Sumner. And as you can see by the accomplishments listed before you on my resume, I've made it my mission to serve the public through affiliations, not just locally, but also nationally.
Julie, 30 seconds.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to let you guys know that I had never thought, like Lori said, never thought about entering into politics. And I don't view this as that. I view this as a way to serve my community. And I'd like to just take a moment to thank each of you for your service above self for serving our community. Thank you.
Julie, thank you. Appreciate that. So the way we do this is each person gets one vote. If it's a tie, then I vote twice. We have 2 choices, Lori Phillips and Julie White. When Annette calls your name, you tell her which one you vote for. And we then go on with the agenda from there. Alderman Robertson.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we're faced with an important and, for me, a difficult decision, because I personally know both candidates extremely well, and that have submitted their applications tonight for consideration. Both are outstanding citizens with long histories of community service, and in my opinion, either could be a successful alderman. The city that we all love and this governing body will be successful whomever is appointed tonight. I thank each of them for stepping forward to serve, regardless of the vote outcome tonight. Both of you are winners, and I'm proud to call each of you my friend. Julie is well known for her activities in Rotary and leadership at the Senior Center. By the way, most of you may know that she was also an outstanding athlete at Beach High School. She and I have worked together on many things, including the building of the First Responders Monument, and I'm proud to call her my friend. She's what I would call a professional volunteer, always ready to step in and help a worthy cause. I admire her current service and accomplishments to our city as Executive Director of the Senior Center, and hope that whatever transpires tonight, that she will continue to stay at its helm. Likewise, Lori is well known in the Walton Ferry Peninsula for her involvement in the schools where her 3 children attend. As a PTO officer, she has worked hard to improve our outstanding schools. Lori and her husband, Marty, run a successful small business, and she surely understands how government can affect businesses. This private sector perspective, I think, would provide her a valuable insight as an alderman. Lori's and my families have known each other for over 30 years. Her father-in-law, Reverend Sam Phillips, used to be my pastor at the Hendersonville Church of God, and he, in fact, assisted in the marriage of my oldest daughter. In fact, Lori's sister-in-law was my daughter's maid of honor in the wedding. I recall Lori's work while attending the church with the children's church that she worked in and her willingness to serve. Lori's family is what my late father, also a Church of God minister, would refer to as the salt of the earth. When I discussed with Lori why she wanted to serve, she gave me the perfect answer. She said that she wanted to help the board function in a more civil manner that would set the proper example in the community and to our children. I reflected that this is almost the identical reason that I ran for the board 3 years ago. In fact, I had this discussion with Lori before Julie had ever expressed an interest or contacted me about being appointed an alderman. This is why when Lori asked me if I would support her, I enthusiastically replied, of course. I gave my word as a gentleman of support to my friend Lori early in the process, and my moral code binds me to vote for her tonight, for my word is my bond. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. When Annette calls your name, you need to reply with one of the 2 names up there, Lori Phillips or Julie White. Go ahead, Annette.
Brown. Collins.
White.
Cunningham.
White.
Dixon.
Phillips.
Edwards.
White.
Hayes.
White.
Peterson.
Phillips.
Petrelli.
White.
Robertson.
Phillips.
Skidmore. I'm sorry. Thank you. Waters.
Phillips.
Clary.
Phillips. So that's 6-6, and the state law allows me to vote twice in this situation. I will again vote for Lori Phillips. Lori, you are welcome to stick around. We'll swear you in later. You are welcome to leave. We do not expect you to come up and vote. We're not going to do that to you. Julie, thank you very much for your participation in this. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this, and we'll go on with the agenda. Next, we have Ordinance and Resolutions. We have second and final reading of Ordinance 2021-53. This is an ordinance establishing a committee and adopting procedures and criteria for the naming of municipal structures. Alderman Edwards. Have a motion from Alderman Edwards. And a second from Alderman Hayes. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of second and final reading of ordinance 2021-53, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes, that passes unanimously. Now we have first reading of ordinance 2020-1. This is an ordinance rezoning 6.1 acres of property located on the east side of Jenkins Court, north of Saundersville Road. Alderman Peterson? So moved. We have a motion and a second from Alderman Cunningham. All those in favor, please signify. I'm sorry, Alderman Robertson? Or is that still on from before?
No.
Okay, appreciate that. All those in favor of Resolution 2020-01, please signify. I'm sorry, Alderman Skidmore? That's all right. I was looking at the wrong end, and then Alderman Brown, I'll get you in just a second. Alderman Skidmore, go ahead.
That's all right. Just have a quick question on this, on Saundersville Road, the property. So did they say what was going to be built at the planning level?
Keith, can you help us out?
Yes, Alderman. What that is that 6.1 acres. It's an additional piece on top of the original Forest Park, and there will be a total of 12 additional homes, new homes that will be built on that.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure
Yes.
that,
Thank you.
just to make sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Skidmore, thank you. Alderman Brown?
I have a procedural question, Mayor.
Okay.
We voted by ordinance quite a while back, spent a lot of money putting equipment in to vote electronically, and we seem to have gotten away from that.
Okay.
I would like to see us get back to following our ordinance if we could, unless it's a potty break.
Okay. Even on items that are going to be unanimous?
How do you know they're going to be unanimous?
Well, you raise a good point.
I mean, we make a lot of assumptions, but sometimes they're not. So I would say yes.
Okay, I'm going to reserve the right at sometimes, if it's something that's technical or something that's maybe grammatical, that we go ahead and vote that way, but I'll take that in consideration as we vote in the future. Appreciate that.
It's our ordinance. Let's do what you want to.
Okay. Anything else on this, Alderman Brown? Okay. Alderman Peterson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to mention one more thing on this
Okay.
Ordinance on Jenkins Lane. They're also running access, access to sewer. Is that correct, Director Free? In addition to the 12 homes, they're also wanting access to sewer. Is that right?
Yeah, this 6.1 acres that they have acquired, they acquired that to get the sewer onto the property, and so it will have sewer, and sewer will be extended onto the Forest Park property, including this piece, right? Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Keith, if you can hang out there for just a second. The net effect of this is probably 10 more homes than what they could do otherwise?
Actually, if it stayed in the county, they could possibly maybe do 10 homes within that area. So probably the net might be, the pure net from what they already had, and then adding to this might be 2 or 3.
Okay. Okay. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
Thank you.
So we'll do electronic vote. Jason, are you ready for us? I appreciate that. So all those in favor press the green button. This is ordinance 2021-01. Those opposed press the red button. I believe we're ready. Go ahead. Who are we missing? Oh, we got to. Oh, that's right. So Alderman Dixon left. So that passes 10-1. I'm the person who voted against it. Everybody else who's here, that's Alderman Petrelli, Skidmore, Peterson, Edwards, Cunningham, Brown, Hayes, Collins, Waters, and Robertson voted for it. We'll move on. Thank you, Jason. Next, we have Resolution 2020-01. This is a resolution to hold a public hearing on the proposed plan of services for property being annexed on the east side of Jenkins Court, north of Saundersville Road, as part of Forest Park. Alderman Peterson.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second from Alderman Waters. Alderman Brown, a electronic vote?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor, please signify by hitting your green button. Those opposed, please hit the red. I believe we're ready to vote. That passes unanimously. Next we have, thank you, Jason. Next we have ordinance 2022-02. This is an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2021-22. This is our current budget ordinance, and accepting a State of Tennessee Department of Transportation Tennessee Highway Safety Grant in the amount of $33,454.20 for the Hendersonville Police Department. Alderman Edwards. Well, I think Petrelli moved, I'll second. Alderman Petrelli makes a motion. Alderman Edwards seconds. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you come up to the podium? I don't see Chief Miller, Chief Jones. So.
So without objection, we're going to hear from Commander Daniel.
Thank you. Good evening. How you doing?
Good, sir.
Some of my questions might be stupid. I don't know, but I'm a stupid guy. I read all the requirements, and I got to page 70, and I had to quit. I never seen so much instructions in all my life. But anyway, that's the way it goes. The question, it says $33,453.20. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bear with me. And I'm reading from the discussion presented to, I guess, from the planning. This year, HPD was awarded $16,375.20 for overtime salaries for officers performing direct speed reduction enforcement and aggressive driving enforcement. Now, here's where I get confused. Let me check my notes. Is there another system that we have that pays our officers for overtime that does not come under this grant?
Yes, sir. Under our regular budget, there are some times when officers work overtime that it's covered. This is an additional grant to do specifically traffic enforcement only.
Yeah, I understand that, and I appreciate that, but I was just concerned when I read that, what about our other officers that doesn't come under this, and they work overtime?
Yes, sir. When
They're
the need
compensated too?
arises, they are compensated for their overtime.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else, Alderman Waters?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of first reading ordinance 2022-02, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, hit the red button. I believe we're ready. So we're missing somebody. Oh, Alderman Skidmore. Green button or red button? Do we have to start over, Jason? Okay, so we'll start over, okay? So all those in favor of ordinance 2022-02, please hit the green button. Those opposed, hit the red button. We're ready. That passes unanimously. Now we have ordinance 2022-03. This is first reading, an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code, Title 7, Chapter 6, regarding explosives. Alderman Petrelli. We have a motion and a second from Alderman Edwards. Alderman Robertson. He's going to have a question for you.
I have a question for our city attorney, please. So our existing ordinance requires a boundary of 1,000 feet, and we're dropping it to 300 feet, the pre-blast survey boundary. Is this action changing this? Is this based on a preemption of state law,
Yes, sir.
of local law?
Yeah, the state law just allows us to go to 300 feet, and they preempt us from doing anything more restrictive than that.
Okay, that's all I have. Just wanted to, on the record, that we were preempted, but we're not doing it because we want to or like to, but because state law has preempted us. Thank you.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of first reading of ordinance 2022-03, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, please hit the red button. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Jason. Now we have Resolution 2022-03. This is a resolution discontinuing application to the Community Development Block Grant Program until the city resolves to make future application. I so move. And a second from Alderman Robertson. Alderman Peterson.
Yes, Mayor. I work with the state CDBG program, so I will abstain.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Alderman Skidmore.
Thank you. Director Free, let me ask you a quick question on this. What does this do with our standing? Because we've been in this program for quite some time. What will it affect? What will it affect? I mean, besides not being in the
Right.
block program.
It just will affect the ability of the city to get the direct funds that we get, the 200,000 plus annually as a participating jurisdiction. That's really the only thing that it would be by dissolving our participation in it's called the Participating Jurisdiction Program.
Yes.
For us to get that automatic funds.
Okay, so if we see something in that program that that kind of tweaks our hire,
Yes.
then we can apply for that grant again. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get it,
Right.
but
By not being a participating jurisdiction like we are right now, then we would actually be available then to submit grants through the state for CDBG funding. And currently, we can't do that because we receive direct funds right now. But if we dissolve the program and we're not participating in it, then we could eventually, if we wanted to, we could apply for the state. The state does have a competitive program, so there would be no guarantee of funding.
okay. And of that money, what are we in terms of? I mean, I think I know this already because we've done it for so long. We're losing the opportunity to fund what? Sidewalks?
Could be sidewalks within low to moderate income census tracts. We don't typically have a lot of low to moderate income census tracts, but with the program that we have now, they let us average our lowest census tracts to utilize that. But what we've done with the funds in the past is we've done rebuilding some streets within those areas, sidewalks, and here in the last several years, we've done a lot on the senior center, on the renovations of the exterior, and we're fixing to do a major project on redoing the site too, where the parking and everything on the outside of the senior center.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Skidmore, anything else?
No, sir. No, sir. That's all. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. Keith, I have several questions. Is it more, are we benefited, what is the benefit of us applying to the state versus getting the CBC? Thank you.
Yeah.
I can never remember the CDBG grant.
Right.
Because with the CDBG grant, we're almost guaranteed to get that money if we apply for it. Is that not correct?
Yes, and what we do now is we do something every 5 years, and then that's why this question's kind of coming up, is the staff has been talking for the last couple of years that it may be better for us to get out of this particular program. And what we do is we have something called the consolidated plan that's done every 5 years, and then every year we do an annual action plan, which is a budget of how we're going to spend the funds. So we have to maintain all of that, as well as maintain all of the different ins and outs and the regulations of what HUD puts on communities that accept it. And we get, a couple $100,000, but we have the same standards as far as all the requirements that a city that would be getting $2 million or $20 million. And so it's very, very cumbersome, but with the limited funds that we get, it's very difficult to do a significant project. And so in order to build up enough funds to do a $400,000 or $500,000 project, then we're behind, and then we're having to do workout plans, and then than HUD saying, hey, you're not spending the money quickly enough. We've kind of worked it out the last couple of years because of COVID. They haven't been pressing us on that, but that's fixing to change. So those are some of those things that we'd have to do from a staff standpoint. Those are becoming more and more difficult to do. If we participated, if we were not in this program and could be competitive at the state level, then there is possibility for some more funding than a couple $100,000, potentially. There potentially, though, could be some match requirements, but then the state takes all the responsibility of a lot of the heavy lifting to make sure that everything's done correctly, so that we're not falling in some pitfalls on managing the money, since we're just touching it every once in a while to do a project. And then the other thing would be, if we applied to the state, it would be because of a project we decided we wanted to do a project and then sought funding for. The way it's working now with the money that we have the money, and then we're trying to find a project that would, that would work so that we can spend that money. And
Okay,
build that up.
I get
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of strings
Yes.
attached to
Yes.
the community development block grant money. I understand that. There's a lot of strings attached. There's a lot of justification and accounting, and we have
Yes.
to use certain vendors that they approve, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
With the state, are we guaranteed funds with the state?
No, it would be competitive, and I think last year, I think the percentage, it was maybe half, maybe somewhere around 50% of the communities that requested funds received it. I think that it's about.
And what is
like
that, what kind of grant is that called with the state?
It's a state CDBG grant, so it's the same money, but the state is getting it, and then it's a pass-through grant, and then communities are applying through the state to receive the CDBG funds.
But there's not as many strings attached on the state level? And also, my other question is, are we restrictive to use it in low to moderate income areas, just like the one that we're getting now? I'm just going to
Yes.
call it a grant.
Yeah,
The grant that
it's-
we're getting now?
It's to do that or to benefit low to moderate income people. So, yeah, it's a lot of the same restrictions at the state level. It's the same restrictions that we would have here. And it's something as the CDBG program is becoming more, there's more strings attached to it, and more than likely there probably will be even more strings. It may be something even when we would get out of being a participating jurisdiction, we would really want to know what we're getting into if we applied through the state to receive money.
Okay, so the big difference is we could get more money. It's not guaranteed. It's a 50-50 proposition that we could get it or not.
Right.
There's still strings, but not as many strings. And we still have to use it for low to moderate income projects.
Yes.
The benefit of the state, of the one that we have now, is that we can choose the project. It doesn't have to be approved or anything. We can choose the project as long as it's within those guidelines.
That's correct.
But with the state, we have to have an existing project that we want to do and present that to the state.
Yes.
Do they have to approve? Well, they would have to approve it. It's
Yeah,
50-50.
It's a competitive
But
process.
I mean, I'm just
yeah.
thinking of TDOT projects that we have
Yeah.
going on, and it's like become nightmarish.
Yes. And this,
So I'm
yeah.
trying to figure out in my brain, is it better to do this or that?
And this is one of those things, if it was more than $200,000, if it was $1 million or $1.5 million, then, this would be a different situation in looking at that, because it's enough money to do something
Yeah.
with. And we would need to be sober in understanding what the requirements of that are as well. Like, if we stay in this program, one of the things that we're going to have to do is I'm going to have to get a study done to affirmatively further fair housing. And we've had one done in the past, but then in the previous presidential administration, then that kind of went away. But now it's coming back. and that's a requirement that we
Okay.
put on there. So we're going to have to do that, and
Well,
that's
that's going to cost us money then to do
yeah.
that.
It would cost us money. The grant would probably pay for it, but whatever the study tells us are problems on affordable housing and affirmatively furthering fair housing, the expectation would be that we would take action to resolve that.
Okay. Thank you. Said
Okay.
enough. I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Cunningham, thank you. Alderman Robertson.
I supported this because I do see those strings from Washington tightening, and I want to do everything I can to try to make sure that the zoning authority of this city stays within the city and
Yes.
not us lose some of that authority for zoning to Washington D.C. So that's the reason. So is that a danger that this remaining in this program could happen? We could see some effects of our zoning authority.
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very possible with any federal funding, especially with HUD funding, and that could be very, very possible. An example is a lot of communities that look at single-family zoning, where you have zones that only have single-family zones, they've eliminated those because they see that as exclusionary zoning, when you just say you can only have one house on a property. So those are just some of the different things that other communities have done. That's not been something that has been, at this point, been dictated by the federal government, but that's certainly a possibility. And that's what it's, anytime we're taking, it's not even just these HUD funds. Anytime we're taking federal funds, we just need to understand what any strings may be attached. And a lot of the different strings that might be attached to things are very good things that we really should be doing anyway. But we just need to understand what those are.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Skidmore.
Yeah, just in closing, excuse me, just in closing, the Community Development Block Grant has changed over the years. And I think, I was curious of what you were going to say to me, because we hadn't even talked about this in quite some time. But just would want to let the board know that this block grant over the years has changed a great deal for the worse. There's more strings attached to it. And what I feel creeping in is federal government is starting to put their fingers into our back pocket. And this is a prime example of what I feel is happening. And there were former aldermen, and I would discuss this years ago on certain issues when this would come up 10, 15, 20 years ago, we would talk about this very thing. And I didn't believe it at first, because I thought it was a good thing. When I see a road going to be paved with some of this money, I'd go, yeah, I think that's what we need. But what I see happening to this board is the federal government's come and said, yeah, we're going to give you this money. Go pave your road. By the way, you got to hire somebody else to oversee this or that to make sure that this program goes through. And that actually is defeating the whole purpose as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to give us this money to help us pave roads or sidewalks and things like that, don't put strings on it. I mean, we're appreciative of it. But I think that's the policy up there. That's the problem with Washington. And I'm not going to get here with the political rhetoric, but I just want to let everybody to know that I'm opposed to this. I will be voting no on the grant, and I want all the aldermen to take a look at this, because that's not the answer. The answer that we need as a city, more government. And this is exactly what this is. So I'm willing just to go to the state and see what we can get, as opposed to this this year. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Alderman Skidmore, thank you. Alderman Petrelli.
Call to question.
Nobody else in the queue? Do you want me to take a vote?
Removed.
Thank you. Okay. All those in favor of Resolution 2022-03, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, please hit the red button. You can't, whoops. I got a thumbs up. Did everybody vote as they anticipate? We had one abstention from Alderman Peterson, as he explained. 10 votes for it, 0 against. Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 2022-04. This is a resolution to apply for a SAFER grant for new firefighters for Fire Station Number 7. Chief Bush, do we have you on the phone? Okay, we have a motion from Alderman Petrelli and a second from Alderman Edwards.
Yes, sir, I'm still here.
Appreciate that. I want to make a motion to amend this. Chief Bush and I and several of us heard, as this went through committee, what's going to be the cost in year 4, what's going to be the cost in year 5, what's going to be the cost in year 6. So we asked Chief Bush and Robert to go back and answer those questions. We get these positions paid for by this federal grant for the first 3 years. After that, we've got to keep those folks on. I don't think anybody has the stomach to lay some folks off just because we lost a federal grant. I don't think anybody has that. And obviously, if we need those folks, especially if it's for a new fire hall, it doesn't make sense to lay somebody off just because we've lost a federal grant. We are going to increase the size of what our expectations are by adding this fire hall. We need at least 12 more people to staff a fire hall, but we also need some folks to come from other fire halls and fill in occasionally. With that in mind, Jesse and I have had a couple conversations with Chief Bush, and he's been very helpful putting some numbers together for us, and we've been able to answer the question, what does adding 15 employees look like 4 years from now? The answer to that is about $1.3 million to the city of Hendersonville that we will have to pay in year 4. Obviously, it'd be more in year 5 and year 6 with the raises that we provide. And so we started talking about how much really is it per position, and that's not an easy thing because you've got to consider what the skill level of those folks that are coming in, the expertise of those folks coming in. You also have to realize that we can't just put new employees in a new fire hall. We don't want to do that. We want to put experienced employees and make sure the new ones are scattered around some fire halls so they get some experience. Jesse and I and Chief Bush have talked a couple times about what that cost is per firefighter, and we've decided that what makes the most sense is to not apply for 15, but apply for fewer, and this is why we came up with that. Because we have right now some, really what is redundancy already in preparing for Fire Hall Number 7. I won't say that we have some folks that we don't need, but we're covered well, thanks to Chief Bush and his fire staff, in preparing not only what we need today, but what we need in the future. And we have what we feel like is some of those 15 already on staff. So my proposal is that we apply for 9 additional ones instead of 15, and I'll show you where that amendment needs to be made. If you look on page 96, about the middle of the page, you see the number 15. I just want to change that to 9. So when we get to year 4, the cost is going to be not 1.3 million, as it would be with 15, but about $781,000. So when we get to year 4, instead of that 1.3, it'd be about $781,000. I appreciate Chief Bush doing an awful lot of work on this, Robert doing some work on this. Like I said, we had some conversations today. Initially, I was thinking, well, I looked at the math and I thought, well, really, it should be 3. And then talked to Chief Bush and thought, well, really, it should be 6. Really, it should be 9. And that's what I'm going to propose now, is that you cross out where it says 15 there, put NINE, parentheses, the numeral 9. And I'm going to make that motion now. We have a second from Alderman Waters. Chief Bush, do you want to speak on this, or we don't have anybody lined up to, I'm sorry, Alderman Collins.
When you were speaking, you started by saying we needed 12 to open. I'm going to get in trouble for not talking into my mic.
Okay.
Sorry. You said we needed 12 to open the fire hall, but you're proposing 9, and you talked about moving people around, but I need you to illustrate that more clearly to me, that 9 is what we need and not 12.
It is very confusing. It's very confusing. Fire Hall Number 1 right now is staffed with 12 people. That's 6 firefighters, 3 senior firefighters, and 3 captains. Occasionally, we have to have somebody come from another fire hall. Fire Hall Number 1 is staffed at that level because it just has one apparatus. It just has an engine. Fire Hall Number 3 has an engine and a truck.
Right.
But it also houses our 3 battalion chiefs. We don't need battalion chiefs at every location. We also don't need firefighters for the trucks at every location. Fire hall number 7 will be most like fire station number 1. That's where I came up with the 12. So fire station number 1 has on A shift 1 captain, 1 senior firefighter, and 2 firefighters, and we have 3 shifts. So we have 4 per shift, we have 3 shifts. That's how we end up with 12 at fire station number 1. And I totally understand that I'm running through this a little bit too quickly. So fire station number 1 has 12. The absolute minimum in fire hall number 7 would be 12. Absolute minimum, because we would still have to bring some people over occasionally to
But they're
satisfy
not all
vacation.
firefighters that this grant pays for. Is that what you're telling me?
Jesse could answer that better. Or Chief Bush. Did you hear that question, Chief Bush?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, right now, I'll try to simplify it. We have 37 folks on each shift for 111 suppression personnel. And that averages, like I said, is 37. A division chief and a battalion chief on each shift. Those are the supervisors. So like after we go home at 5 o'clock, unless it's a big incident, those folks are supervising. The division chief supervises 4 stations. The battalion supervises 3 once Station 7's built. That's more of a responsibility for the division chief. The battalion chief was prior to you coming on board. That was kind of a development position to take the next step to a division chief. We can function as a department. What we try to do is maintain city policies and rules as far as not carrying over a bunch of vacation. We have Kelly days, work on a 27-day work cycle, which is really another perplexing thing to try and not even really get into. So we don't typically have 4 on a company. NFPA 1710 is a recommendation to have at least 4 as a minimum per company. The reason I was going after 15 is because I felt like the 15 would allow for, if we had an individual from Station 7 that was on vacation, sick, FMLA, we sent them to training, whatever that may be, we would reduce the opportunity for folks to travel from another station to Station 7. The mayor is correct. We do have some firefighters that we can augment or fill with those 9. I hope that kind of answers your questions.
Alderman Dixon, I told you it was confusing.
I'm Alderman Collins.
Alderman Collins, I am sorry.
We have name tags.
And she's not even here today.
I know.
Right now.
I guess my concern is when we say we need 12, but we're going to ask for 9, and then there's this, well, we don't need 12, but we do need 12, and it's not very clear to me.
We have some redundancy right now,
Right.
to the point of probably about 9 to 11 positions. If we went with just 6 additional ones, we would probably have to increase our overtime. If we went with 12 or 15, we would probably have some people on staff that we didn't necessarily need. 9 sort of fixed that happy medium, where we wouldn't have to increase our overtime a bunch, but we would still have reasonable redundancy. Meaning we have some extra employees available.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't love overtime for a lot of reasons, not just financial, but I don't want people getting burned out. And, but I know at the same time, a lot of them rely on that for their pay. So
Chief, you want to talk?
okay, I'm okay.
So we, and Mr. Bradley and some of the other folks on the board may remember when we went to the 27-day work cycle. I'm going to try to make this brief so again it's not confusing. We used to have what we called scheduled overtime that we got compensated for. So we try to keep our numbers higher to keep from having paying out overtime, because that comes at a time and a half rate of whatever the individual's hourly rate is. So obviously, NFPA 1710, again, is compliancy with 4 on a company, and that is what a national standard is. It's a recommendation. It's nothing in law, and it gives you more people to function on a fire ground or a scene, any scene that you may send. So obviously, a medical call, if it's serious enough, We can tie up 2 to 3 people on a medical call with EMS crews as well. So that's again why we went for the 15. The mayor is correct. We do have some folks that we can make it work with the 12 to equal out. And I don't want to make it too much more confusing for you. We could really sit down and talk for 4, 5, 6 hours about 27-day work cycles and no overtime. That's what I say. We try to keep the overtime costs to a minimum. The UTV in the park is another critical thing. Currently, right now, if the UTV in the park is called for and we have enough people on staff, we don't use any overtime. If we don't have enough, we would potentially have to offer up the overtime or not staff the UTV in the park.
Alderman Collins, anything else? We can come back to you.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Alderman Collins. Alderman Edwards.
Okay, Chief, so if we had 12, would that be $1,040,000 per year that we would have to pay after 3 years? I've calculated it to be about $86,000 per.
Yes, sir. It's roughly about 86,867.76. And as the mayor said, we figure that on the high end. Not every person that comes to us will have max benefits as far as EMT, paramedic, journeyman firefighter, all those things. We wanted to give you the higher amount. It could certainly be less for sure. It just depends on who the people are that apply for us and come to us. But we did cut short and then have to come back and ask for more. So we shot high. And then also what you're looking at for the 12, the $1,042,413.12, that's the first year of what it would cost at the max amounts. If we had a COLA or a merit or both between 1 and 2, then you would have to factor that in, that $1,042,413. So each time that you had a raise over the next 3 years or a COLA or both, then that $1,042,413 would increase by that amount.
Okay, well, what's your opinion, Chief? Do you think 9 more would be enough to adequately staff Fire Station 7? Would that be enough to adequately respond to emergencies?
Well, I will tell you, like I told the mayor and Mr. Eckenroth today, I always like a higher number, but I am willing to compromise. We did the mid-year budget review. We got a $790,000 put back in the mid-year review for the air packs. And I certainly, again, in the spirit of compromising, we'll try to make it work. There's no guarantees because until we get 7 open and we find out what the UTV in the park, we really haven't hit the busy season for the UTV in the park. If we don't have enough staff, then we would have to make a decision of whether to pay overtime or not staff the UTV.
Okay, I mean, I honestly have to think about this. I mean, I don't know if we didn't properly respond to an emergency because of the spirit of compromise. I mean, I don't know. I like the number 12. I mean, I think that would be a good compromise, but I'll just have to think about this. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Edwards, do you have a motion?
Would you be willing to change your motion to 12?
That's an easy way to do it, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Who seconded this? Alderman Waters, would you be okay with my motion instead of 9 to be 12? Okay. So we have so we're changing that motion from 9 to 12 at the exact same place in the text. Alderman Edwards, go ahead.
That's all I have. Thank you,
Okay,
Mayor.
appreciate that.
Appreciate you.
Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor, and that was going to be my question. Just the day and the times that we're living in, to have a contingency with sickness and possible long-term disability, sickness, and even worse than that, I think the 12 I can support. I don't think I could have supported the 9. But thank you, Mayor, for doing that, and I can support the 12. Thank you.
Alderman Cunningham, thank you. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. What is the maximum amount of this grant?
There is no maximum amount, sir. 4 years ago, we applied for 19 and got those. So there's not a cap. I think you just have to be mindful that there's millions of fire departments across the country that apply for these. And so they don't tell you that you're limited at 20 5 or 4. I think they try to be reasonable with those and the amount you ask for, and we certainly try to be reasonable with how we approach those, so we reduce the opportunity to be turned down.
And Chief, have you ever applied for a SAFER grant before?
Yes, sir. We had 19 that were hired by a SAFER grant almost 5 years ago.
And where are those 19 today?
They're spread out throughout the 3 shifts at our current 6 stations.
And one last question. Chief, did you get your hat from Andy?
No, sir, but I did go to a whiskey jam with the fundraiser back in the winter, and they had a little booth, so I did make some purchases. I'm trying to spur the economy on.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Peterson, thank you. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the temperature in Wisconsin?
With a wind chill, sir, it's negative 13. Tonight would be a good night for a Taco Tuesday.
Yeah. I believe I'll stay here. It's cold enough here. So, couple questions. You asked for 15. The mayor wanted to compromise and do 9 because of redundancy, and which all of you and Jesse and he, I guess, agreed that would be a good number. Now we're changing that to 12. All that bothers me a little bit. It's like we're standing back throwing darts. Okay, how about do 10? Can we do 10? If we want to? No, you can do 10 if you want to. So, and we've got an auctioneer, so he could do that. But here's my serious question. 12 is probably a really good number, but these are if we apply for 9, 12, or 15, and we get this, these will be brand-new firefighters to come on board, will be trained in school and OJT, and they'll be ready to go here in a few months if we can get that done, correct?
Yes, sir. Typically, we'll save some money. As I'm speaking about who applies, we may have some folks that have qualifications that come to us that we may not have to send to the academy. Typically, what we do is we put them through an in-house boot camp. That's everybody before we send them to 10-week academy to kind of see where they're at mentally and physically before we spend the money and invest them in a program. And then also, we've worked out a really good deal with Murfreesboro Fire. They hold a recruit class on a regular basis over there, and they always save us spots to send some of our staff to. So that would be some savings we would have on the front end as well. Of not having to pay for the recruit class. And they're also gracious enough to allow those folks to stay at their fire stations. So if there's any studying they need to do or any extra work they need to do, then they're exposed to firefighters. They don't go on calls in Murfreesboro, but they do stay at the stations and are exposed to real-time folks and get lots of questions answered, and their skills are really honed in.
Okay, here's another question for you. In the next 3 years, how many folks in your department do you think will retire? Or you have a pretty good feel?
Do you want me to be honest? Do you want me to shoot from the hip?
Well, no, yeah, I would prefer honesty. 12. That seems good to me.
12.
So I've got several folks that are waiting to see what I do over the next 3 to 4 years. They've come and spoke to me about that and said that they're going to walk when I walk. I do have 2 right now that are talking about leaving sometime this year, but they have not pursued that or approached me. It's just kind of been in conversations in the past or in passing. I am going to try to talk to those individuals when I get back. But I would say right now, within the next 3 years, you're going to see a significant turnover from captains and administrative staff from the fire department.
Which means every time one of those positions opens up, somebody moves in behind that position to backfill that one. And finally, you get down to, you got somebody you need on an apparatus and you got an open slot, so you're going to have to fire them, correct? Hire them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we do 12 positions and you have a significant number, we'll say 3 to 6,
then we've really did nothing in the SAFER grant but backfill those 3 to 6 positions that are probably going to retire or go someplace else.
Well, we don't have
I'm
much of a
just saying
turnover.
that. You don't have to agree with that or not, but to me, that's the concept in my mind. If somebody leaves, somebody moves up, it opens a position in the bottom, we're going to have to hire somebody outside this number of SAFER grant guys that we may get.
Yes, sir. The SAFER grant does obligate you, whatever numbers you have. So like right now, we have 111 in suppression. If you hire 15, if you hire 12, if you hire 9, you must maintain those numbers for the longevity of that grant. You cannot go below that. That leaves money on the table. They do not like that, and you are subject to paying all the money back to that point.
Okay. Here's what I would say. I think 15 is a good number, and that's the simple reason why, because we're going to have some people retire or leave in the next few years. We're going to have to backfill those spots. That will cost us money to backfill those spots. So, I will certainly vote for a higher number, but I still think 15 is the number. Thank you.
Alderman Brown, thank you. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. We all got our opinions on this, and you gave us the figure amount on 9. Do you have that figure for 12?
For 12, the cost in year 4 is $1,042,413. Year 5 is really hard to tell you because it depends on what raises we provide. It might be 0%, it might be 2.5%, it might be 5%. Same thing with year 6. But year 4 would be $1,042,413.
No, sir. Sorry, if I may add.
Okay.
If these folks come on at the end of their 6-month probationary period, if we gave a raise and they met all of our standards, at least had a meets on their evaluation, and we gave a raise. So like right now, we're getting ready to do a pay study, if I'm not mistaken, within the year this year. If we bring these folks on board and say there is a pay study that gives these folks a raise, they would be subject to that raise as well.
Good point.
So if you do 2.5% from year 1 to year 2, they get that. From year 2 to year 3, if you give 2.5% or 1.5, 1.3, whatever, or a COLA and a merit, then they would be subject to that. So it potentially can increase from year to year once we get that first year in. This $1,042,000 is just the figure for the first year.
Okay. If we had to pay that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that's if everybody came to us with all the max benefits. Yes, sir.
Okay. I appreciate you. I should have realized it would definitely be higher in the 4th year. Thank you. Alderman Waters.
Scott, you mentioned something a while ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did I hear you say if you walk, they walk? What did you mean by that?
Well, when I get ready to retire, sir, there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to.
When do you retire? When do you retire?
I could retire right now, sir, if I wanted to, but I don't choose to.
You think everyone would leave if you retired tomorrow?
No, sir, not everyone, but there's some guys that have 30 years of service that would probably retire when I retire. They've told me that.
How many's retired in the last 3 years?
None, sir.
None.
None, no, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Appreciate it, Alderman Waters. Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. So for the sake of redundancy, I'm going to start off with being redundant. You know, this came before public safety 2 weeks ago, and at that point, I initiated my intention that I was going to bring this to the board 2 weeks ago and get it on the agenda. And unbeknownst to me, that was not going to happen, and I don't appreciate the lack of information on that. Further, here we are with this resolution, and now we are discussing moving numbers around when we had this opportunity to do this 2 weeks ago. And as Alderman Brown said, we're kind of throwing darts. I'm going to support the full 15. If it comes to 12, I think that is a good compromise. Our fire department has excellent leadership. They have a known track record with this SAFER grant. Their grant writers in the fire department are outstanding. In the end, this will save taxpayers money. Is it going to add personnel? Yes, it is, but our city is growing. We will continue to add personnel. To avoid discussions like we've had tonight, I think it would be most appreciative, especially as the chairman of public safety, that this discussion was had 2 weeks ago instead of tonight. Thank you.
Alderman Petrelli, thank you. Alderman Collins.
When are we gonna, do we have a goal date for the fire station at this point?
Alderman Robertson, you want to try that one?
At the capital projects meeting, we discussed, we do have the engineering studies now and the cost estimates. And so the next step is to put it out for bid. So that's the next step. I can't tell you after the bids because we'll have to determine how we're going to fund it because we're told that the cost estimates, Chief, are about 40% higher. Is that right? Than what we.
It's somewhere in there, 25, 30, something like that. If I'm not mistaken, I don't have that in front of me. Sorry.
So the next step, and that should be within the next 60 days to put it out for bid. Once we get the bids back, then we'll select a bid, decide on how we're going to fund it, and then move forward from there. So I can't give you a date of when, but we're following the proper procedures. Also, I want to say that the mayor and some of the staff, I know Chief Bush is continuing to work with the county to see if they would contribute for that fire station because it would service a lot of the county residential areas in that area. So that is ongoing funding. But no, we're moving forward with the bidding process.
Do you expect that, well, I guess I should ask the question differently. If the SAFER grant is received, which I think we all expect that we would be approved for whatever number we would apply for, and our fire hall isn't built yet, do we get to put the grant money on hold until we're ready to exercise the grant? Or is there a use it or lose it period? I mean, I'm concerned about, we've already ordered a fire truck and now we're applying for a grant for this and we haven't broken ground on the building where these people are going to be. So what happens if we don't have the fire hall?
Chief Bush, do you want to respond to that? That might help us?
Yeah. So we've already had the first submittal of plans between planning, codes, and my Fire Prevention Bureau. We've made the recommendations for the changes. They've gone back. They are working on the changes right now to resubmit. We're supposed to go out to bid towards the end of February. I think it's towards the end of February. I don't have those dates in front of me as well. And then there's 280 days that they're allowing for the building of that station, which is roughly 8 months, a little over 8 months with a 30-day, it's 250 with 30 days of inclement weather clause. So they're pretty confident that that thing's going to be built in about 8 months. And they are currently building a couple in Mount Juliet and other places as well. And they have promised us, along with our staff, codes and planning, that we're going to stay on top of these folks and make sure that they're meeting our expectations along with Mr. Eckenroth. So we're still looking at possibly the end of the year. If we get these folks on board, depending on the amount of people, depending on what they come to us with, they're going to be at the academy at a minimum of 10 weeks. And we'll put them through an in-house boot camp as well. We have to submit for the grant by February the 3rd, but they won't be awarding those grants till later on in the year. I'd say after the budget year.
Okay. Okay, that's all I need.
Thank you, Alderman Collins. We've got a motion on the floor, and that is to amend the ordinance to seek 12. That's the motion that we're going to vote on at this time. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by hitting your green button. Those opposed, please hit the red button. So that passes unanimously. Now we're back on the main motion, and the only change is that this is no longer a resolution seeking a grant for 15. It's now a resolution seeking a grant for 12. Alderman Petrelli.
I'd like to amend it back to 15.
So you just voted to make it 12.
Yep.
And now you're making a motion to go back to 15.
Yes, sir.
And we have a second from Alderman Brown. All those in favor of amending this back to 15, please press the green button. Those that want to keep it at 12, I'm sorry, hold on, Jason. Essentially reversing the decision that we just made. Okay, so those in favor of keeping it at 12, press the red button. Those in favor of the amendment to take it back to 15, press the green button. Did we do that correctly, Jason? Missing a couple folks. We've got one other person who hasn't voted. Okay, there we go. So we have yes from Alderman Collins, Alderman Brown, Alderman Petrelli. We have no's from Alderman Skidmore, Peterson, Edwards, Cunningham, myself, Alderman Hayes, Alderman Waters, and Alderman Robertson. We're back on the main motion of the, we're back on the main motion of the resolution as amended, which is now 12. Alderman Waters, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Okay, sorry, okay. So all those in favor of the resolution as amended, which has 12 firefighters that we're going to apply for, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, hit the red one. That passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is, thank you, Chief Bush. If you want to hang around, feel free. If you want to go out and play in the cold, feel free to do that as well.
I'm not going to play in the cold, but if I understand you correctly, we could submit that grant tomorrow or Thursday.
That'd be wonderful. Jesse, I assume that can be done. Okay, appreciate that. Next, we have other agenda items. This is a vote on the reappointment of Jeremiah Bennett to the Parks Board. I so move. And a second from Alderman Waters. All those in favor, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, hit the red one. We have one person that left. So do we need to vote again?
I'm just waiting.
Okay.
I haven't stopped it yet.
Okay, so do we still have some people who haven't voted?
Peg,
She's not here anymore.
I'll stop it.
Okay, so here we go. So that passes unanimously with 10 votes. Alderman Petrelli is no longer here. Next, we have a vote on the appointment of Jill Rather to the Parks Board. I so move. Second from Alderman Waters. All those in favor of Jill Rather serving on the Parks Board, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, please hit the red one. That passes with 6 votes, 3 abstentions, and 1 no. The no vote is Alderman Cunningham. The abstention is Alderman Brown, Alderman Hayes, and Alderman Collins. That passes with a majority of the votes cast. Next, we have brief committee reports. Finance Committee, Chairman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. We had our Finance Committee meeting tonight. We had a short agenda, but pretty long discussion about all of them. Ordinance 2022-02, an ordinance amending Ordinance 2021-22 and accepting a Tennessee Highway Safety Office grant was recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2022-04, an ordinance amending Ordinance 2021-22 to reflect mid-year adjustments to the city's 2022 fiscal year budget. We had quite a discussion on that because we had some really good news about our projected sales tax revenue through the end of the year, overall revenue too. And we were able to add some items on that list that will be coming before BOMA in 2 weeks. That was recommended unanimously. And then we had an audit presentation by Craft CPAs, which the summary was really presented tonight by Ken Youngstead, and so we appreciated him being here with us tonight. And then we had our sales tax analysis report, and happy to report we are at an all-time high for sales tax year over year. During the month of, actually the reporting month was December, but the actual sales tax collections happened in November, so we still haven't seen the December figures yet. But during that month, we had sales tax revenue of $1,571,875, an increase year over year of $255,455, or 21.88% year-to-date, year-over-year increase. So we're projecting year-over-year to be over 115% over last year. And stay tuned for December results, because they'll be reported by our next finance meeting. And that is the end of my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Chairman Cunningham, thank you. Chairman Skidmore, Public Works.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to keep this at a minimum. Yeah, I promise you I will. I have one issue. There are several, but I only want to discuss one issue tonight, or just let the board know. It's about the light synchronization program. I'm happy to tell you that our environmental document has been approved, finally, from the state of Tennessee. That is a really good thing. All we need is one more document to be approved, and that is the construction document. Now, that sounds like you're going like, what are you, oh my God, that sounds really crazy. Well, it's not. Every document that we've had from the city, or excuse me, to the state, dealing with our environment has always been the hardest. And you can imagine why that is the hardest for our city to pass, because we have a lot of history here in this town, i.e., Indian burial grounds, those kind of things, water, I could go on with that. That's why that's always been, environmental issues have always been really hard to get past the way that most documents are. So we're waiting now for the approval of the document for construction. And once we get that approved, we will be, Sarah will be coming forward to letting us know, what our next step is. But that is, let me just tell you that is a critical step. And I know that you all are as pleased as I am. I could go on with others, but it's been an interesting night, and I know everyone's ready to go home tonight. So I thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Skidmore. Chairman Robertson, Capital Projects.
Yeah, briefly, at our last capital projects meeting, staff gave us an overview of all of the capital projects, the status. I requested, and they gave us the next step in each project and an estimated timeline. I will only mention two. Chairman Skidmore's already talked about the light synchronization, and hopefully if the state approves, we can put the bid out in the next 45 days, if the state approves the construction bid. On the Old Shackle Island, Walton Ferry project, the cost of that has increased. The city portion is around $400,000, and staff has found in the budget monies that we can fund that additional cost. That additional cost is because of railroad cost, the CSX railroad increased cost. The bad news is that the projected timeline is 4 years that it would be completed. So we're still looking at a little short of eternity on that project. But the staff, I will say the staff is working hard on all of the projects and is in the process on other projects of acquiring right-of-ways for those projects. So I want to thank Ms. Locke. I want to thank Jesse for this, because they are pushing forward on these projects. And if you want more information, please talk to Sarah. Thank you.
Chairman Robertson, thank you. Our Chief of Operations, Jesse Eckenroth.
Thank you. I'll keep this brief, but one thing I do want to highlight, the financial statements that were presented tonight, just to recap, the fact that the city has an unassigned balance of $11.7 million when compared to a year ago is significant. So that's an attribute to the board doing their job and staff keeping expenditures low. So great job on that. This year we'll actually have money to put in reserves after meeting the comptroller's recommendation. So that's really good. And then just the other thing I want to mention, we are going to start, I believe, tomorrow with a contracted vendor for the rest of the storm cleanup after we issue our RFP for Indian Lake and for Walton Ferry Peninsula. So we had a pre-con with them today, and they should start tomorrow. So Public Works has been hard at that, but should get wrapped up even faster now. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Jesse, appreciate that. Alderman Brown.
When you say, and I think I know the answer to this, but that's right in the middle of my ward where a ton of the damage is. When you say contract to finish cleaning up, that limbs, trees, what does that mean?
So everything that's piled in the side of the roads in the area that only the area that we designated where the tornado came through. So our limb crews have been hitting that area heavily, and we've had help from Rogers Group, but that means that our limb crews haven't been able to hit the other areas, meaning even the areas that right around the tornado debris. So by having a contracted vendor come in, they're going to focus just on the tornado damage area, and then our crews can start going out on their regular routes.
That's good information. Thank you.
Alderman Brown, thank you. Jesse, thank you. You've got my report in your packet. I have nothing to add. Alderman Edwards?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion adjourned from Alderman Edwards and a second from Alderman Peterson. All those in favor, please hit your green button. Those opposed, please hit your red button. What do you got? That passes 8-0. We're adjourned.
Thanks for the poster for the county.